Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners Land Use Meeting. It is Tuesday, April 10th, and we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance and our prayer from our chaplain, Commissioner Stacy White.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, you've given us the land on this earth as a finite resource, and we just pray that this board, our staff, and stakeholders will make decisions today that will put that resource to best use. Lord, we pray for our first responders and members of our armed forces, and as always, we pray that you will comfort them, guide them, and deliver them home safely. We ask for all of these things in your heavenly name. Amen.
Thank you, Commissioner White, for that wonderful prayer. And we're going to go ahead and get started and move to the Ms. Moretta and the changes to the agenda.
Good morning, Commissioners. Joe Moretta, Development Services Department. For the record, we have several changes for the agenda. The first one is found on the change memo that was handed out, and that change memo actually has some changes on it itself. The first one is found on agenda page 7, item C-01, application number V18-0010. This should read, the staff has requested this item be continued to the May 8th, 2018 board meeting starting at 9 a.m. Again, that's the staff that's requesting a continuance. And they're asking that this case go to the May 8th board meeting starting at 9. Second one is found on agenda page 8, item E-01, personal appearance 18-0407. The applicant has requested this item be continued to the June 12th, 2018 board meeting starting at 9 a.m. That takes care of the change memo. Now onto the changes on the agenda itself. A1, personal appearance 18-0216. This application is out of order. It's being continued to the May 8th board meeting starting at 9 a.m. Item A2, personal appearance 18-0436. This application is also out of order. It's being continued to the May 8th board meeting starting at 9 a.m. Item A3, personal appearance 18-0507. This application is out of order, being continued to the May 8th board meeting starting at 9 a.m. Item A4, major modification 17-1020. The applicant has requested a continuance to the May 8th board meeting starting at 9 a.m. Item A5, personal appearance 18-0133. The applicant has requested a continuance to the May 8th board meeting starting at 9 a.m. And finally, item A5, rezoning PD 17-1120. The staff has requested this item be continued to the May 8th board meeting starting at 9 a.m. That concludes all the changes to the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Kemp to approve the changes to the agenda. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote.
Motion carried 5-0.
And now we're on the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Move the consent agenda.
Motion by Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Kent to approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote. And
Motion carried 5-0.
anyone that has a B item on the agenda, your item has been approved. And I don't have a memo, but I understand Commissioner Higginbotham is going to be late due to traffic. And now those who intend to present testimony, evidence, or otherwise be heard on any matter scheduled for consideration at today's meeting, please stand, raise your right hand so the clerk may swear you in.
Good morning. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Please be seated.
Okay, thank you very much. We're ready. Yes.
Commissioners, before we go into the E items, I just wanted to announce that the 5 board member policy is applicable now. There's 5 board members seated, so any applicant that would wish to continue to a later time or date at which a board of 6 or more members is present may do so either now or at the beginning of the presentation on their item.
Okay. I know Commissioner Christ is on the premises. and Commissioner Higginbotham is stuck in traffic. So I feel pretty certain we'll have all 7 here shortly. Thank you, though, to let everyone know. Okay, Mr. Moretta, we're ready to go to the agenda.
Thank you. With the continuance we have, we'll take up with item E2 on the agenda. This is personal appearance 18-0433. This is the plan development approved in 2004. This specific request deals with a 119 student elementary school. The zoning has conditions which limit school hours and requires it to end at 2:30. They're proposing a couple of changes. They're proposing to allow aftercare activities till 6 o'clock, and they're also requesting to modify the required setback, which is 50 feet, for the parking along Robertson Trail. The site itself is located on Livingston Avenue, 19215. They're asking to reduce the setback for the parking along Robertson Trail from 50 feet to 15, and they're proposing to maintain compliance with access management, which was part of the reasoning behind the setback required for the parking lot itself. So at the end, they will meet the access management requirements. Staff has reviewed this, is recommending approval with conditions.
Okay, thank you very much. Is the applicant here for item E2? Good morning, and you have 15 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Jesse Blackstock. I'm with Blackstock
Have you
Engineering.
been sworn in?
I have. Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Yes. I'm located at 146 2nd Street North, Suite 310, St. Pete, Florida, 33701, and we are here representing the owner and the applicant, Damba Development, LLC. The owner and the director of the school are in attendance this morning for any questions you may have following my presentation. We are here before you this morning to basically ask for your approval to modify 2 specific conditions of zoning. Condition 1.1 as it relates to principal hours of business, and then condition number 8 regarding parking setbacks to Robertson Trail. Specifically, condition 1.1, we are requesting to have classes cease at 2:30 p.m. and then allow the school to offer aftercare services to its students till 6 p.m. There are currently enrolled 20 students at Andy Smart Academy, with 16 staying beyond the hour of 2:30 currently. This request is not uncommon, in our opinion, to private schools and is absolutely necessary in order to allow for working parents to provide a safe and secure environment for their children. Regarding condition number 8, the parking setback requirement of 50 feet, based on my review of past BOCC records, it's, in my opinion, relating to the standard county requirement for driveway throat depth, and not specifically an actual setback to parking from the Robertson Trail itself. We are simply requesting that the language be revised to reflect a 15-foot buffer versus a setback for parking, which is in excess of standard right-of-way buffering requirements per the Land Development Code. And again, we respectfully ask for your approval this morning, and the applicant and the school director is here for any questions you may have.
Great,
Thanks so much.
Thank you. See any questions at this time? We'll move into the public hearing and open the public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of item E2? Anyone here wishing to speak in opposition to item E2? No, you need to come to the microphone, sir, and identify yourself.
Good morning, Michael Roth. I'm the neighbor across the street from the property. And we're not familiar with this property. My wife, Monique, in the red sweater there. What changes, he mentioned 20-something students. We're concerned as being right across the street. That's a quiet neighborhood. Myself and the neighbors next to us are a retired couple, and the two on down, straight across from the property, are retired as well. So all the people there moved for a quiet place. So 20 students is okay, but if till 6 o'clock. But if you grow to, say, 30, 40, 100, where does it end, and how big is this property going to grow to? We're concerned about the noise and the activity on the road, as it's already congested traffic.
Okay, and the applicant will come back up in a rebuttal and answer your questions.
Thank you very much for your
Thank
time.
you. And could the applicant come back up and answer the gentleman's question?
Good morning again, Jesse Blackstock for the record, with Blackstock Engineering. If I believe I understood his concerns correctly, the number of students that this this campus is currently approved for is 119. And that's based on the previous rezoning conditions. So we're not asking for any more intense of a use than we have currently. And the reality of this request is in response to a zoning enforcement that was issued. The current owner took over the property in about the middle of 2017. I think it was May when the property was purchased. When he did so, he's dressed up the property. He's made a lot more improvements to it. He's currently doing renovations to the facility itself. The intensity, again, is not asking for it to be any more intense than it is.
Okay, I think he was asking specifically about the aftercare. That's going to be for 20 students. That will last till 6 o'clock at night.
Yes, ma'am, and that's kind of where I was headed with the zoning enforcement. Thank you. The zoning enforcement was that he didn't realize that the applicant/owner did not realize there was a specific zoning condition ceasing hours of principal use at 2:30. And so his interpretation, and mine as well, was that the principal hours of the school was in fact the school. And so 2:30, the classes do cease currently. And so there are students, up until the point that zoning enforcement happened, staying beyond the hours of 2:30 for just your typical aftercare. And so we're asking for the hours of operations to be modified to allow to 6 p.m.
Okay, and staff, would you like to?
Our conditions only deal with the hours of operation and the parking lot setback. It doesn't deal with restricting the numbers beyond the 119 that it's approved for. So if the applicant is going to commit to anything, then we would need to craft the condition to reflect the commitment.
Are you willing to put a condition in the item that says you won't go over the 119?
Well, that's already limited. It's below those numbers that we would need to address.
Below the numbers,
So we're not
okay.
restricting it to 20 beyond the 230.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the 20 students, there's not a magical number there. That's just the current enrollment. They're allowed up to 119, but for this school year, they have 20.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in favor or in opposition to item E2? And we'll close the public hearing. Applicant, do you have anything further to say in rebuttal? Okay. And now we'll go to board action. Motion. We have a motion by Commissioner Chris, seconded by we have a second. Second by Commissioner Hagan. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Okay, thank you. We now move to item E3.
Thank you, Commissioners. This takes us to the Waimama area. This personal appearance 18-0435. This application is essentially being prepared to calibrate the site to recognize the ELAP property that's approximately on the eastern half of it, clarify the access to that property. It was going to reduce the entitlements for dwelling units from approximately 1,010 to 644. Also, the redesign will modify the lot sizes to allow the 4,000 and 5,000 square foot product. And as I said, to clarify the access for the ELAP property, staff is recommending approval with conditions.
Okay, thank you very much. Is the applicant here? Yes, you are.
Yes, I am.
Good morning. Have you
William
been sworn
Malloy.
in?
I have been.
Thank you.
William Malloy, 325 South Boulevard. Commissioners, as Mr. Moretta said, the purpose of this minor modification to an existing plan development is really just to clean up the approved plan to reflect some changes from 2010. A large piece of the original PD was sold to the county for ELAP land. The changes we're asking for today are to obviously exclude the ELAP land from development, to provide for some different access options, to reduce the overall density, and to tweak the lot development standards just a little bit. I'm happy to expound on any of those points or answer any questions.
Okay, I don't see any questions at this time, so we'll go ahead and move into the public hearing portion of the meeting. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of item E3? Please come forward. Good morning.
Good morning. Javon Franks, Executive Director, Waimama Community Development Corporation. Just a point of clarity on, item 4, and modify internal and external ingress and egress points to reflect county ELAP ownership and a proposed alternative access for project access to Westlake Drive. One was curious as to, the current, the current plan for that project and what is the modification that is proposed or requested.
Okay, Ms. Morita, can you help with this question?
The current
Thank
plan,
you.
sorry. The current plan on the plan development doesn't really reflect ELAP. It reflects a subdivision, which is the main reason identifying the parcel that it's to the east as conservation area. The plan is to have it access either through an easement in the south or through the subdivision collector road, which will be essentially in the center somewhat of the site, the plan development. And that access will be determined during the development process as they get further into final development plans.
Okay, and will we see this come back to us after?
Not if it's approved.
Not if it's approved. Okay. Sir, do you have further questions?
Well, I guess I don't quite understand the answer. So you're saying there's not a plan that's available to the public to see right now?
There's a plan that's available to the public that I can provide a copy. We can show you a large site plan over here.
Okay.
And clarify what the proposal is as it moves forward. But right now, the plan shows access. The current plan, we can show you that as well. Mm-hmm. It shows access for a subdivision, yes. And that subdivision is not going to occur on the conservation area because that's been purchased by the
yes.
Environmental Lands Acquisition. But we can show you these plans. If you'd like to continue the item, I can have staff walk through the access, the current one and the proposed access, and then we can come back to this case after they've had a chance to look at that, or?
Yeah, I think I would rather. Commissioner White wants to, would you like to make a motion to continue this to allow him time to look at the plan?
Sure. I'll make a motion to table the item and take it up last.
Continue, yeah. To take it up last. Okay, we have a motion to continue this item, seconded by Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Kemp. We'll take this up at the end of the agenda.
Thank you.
So thank you. So with no further discussion, please record your vote. This is to continue.
Motion carried 7-0.
Okay, thank you all very much.
This brings us to item E4. This is in the northwest area of the county, personal appearance 18-503. This is a request to modify the required buffers to accommodate additional parking for an existing office development. Currently, this is it's a mixed-use project that's primarily existing. This will modify the office pod. The buffer areas where this is proposed to encroach into are also surrounded by large areas of undeveloped property that will remain in that state due to environmental configurations. They're going to use paver blocks, which is semi-pervious material, and it will not affect any of the wetland setback matters. Staff is recommending approval subject to conditions.
Okay, thank you very much. Is the applicant here? Good morning. And please identify yourself. Have you been sworn in?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
My name is Nathan Lee. I'm with Kimley Horn & Associates at 655 North Franklin Street, Tampa, Florida. Basically, like was stated by staff, there's some minor setbacks, encroachments that we're going to be planting trees and doing other things required by the county when they're constructed. And it's just to add 27 parking spaces.
Okay.
Any questions?
Don't see any questions right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll move into the public hearing portion of the meeting. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of item E4? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to item E4? Okay, now move to board action. Do I have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Chris, seconded by Commissioner White. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you. We'll move to item E5.
E5 is personal appearance 18-0508, located on 14620 Turtle Drive. Commissioners, this is a minor modification to reconcile the setbacks for an existing building that was built several years ago. The required setback was 25 feet. The building placement was actually 14.5 approximate feet. And this will remedy that existing encroachment for this building. And the applicant's also proposing to modify the parking calculations to reflect the land development code parking requirements for multifamily. This is a multifamily project, approximately 232 dwelling units. It was approved in 1984. The building's been there, as I said, for several years, and this will bring it into compliance. Staff is recommending approval with conditions.
Okay, thank you very much for the explanation, and the applicant's here and ready to give his presentation. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Board members, I'm Michael Horner, 14502 North Dale Mabry Highway, Tampa, representing the applicant. As Joe mentioned, this development's been in place for almost 30 years. Unfortunately, under a closing agreement on a refinancing, it discovered by the survey company that one of the numerous buildings on site was deficient on a side setback from 25 to approximately 14.6 feet. No one caught it in permitting, no one caught it in rezoning, no one caught it in development. So this PRS is simply to reconcile that non-conforming setback. There's no opposition. We have a non-residential use to the west. We have a screening wall, buffer, and fencing on that western edge. We're also reconciling a parking condition that has already been cured, but to clarify the prior condition of record, we're asking for that as well. Be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you very much for the explanation. I see no questions at this time. We'll open up the public hearing portion of this item. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of item E5? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to item E5? Okay, board action. Motion by Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Kemp on item E5. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you very much. We're now on to item E6.
Thank you, Commissioners. Item C6 is personal appearance 18-509. This is located in the Gibsonton area on the southwest quadrant of Sims Road and Messler Road. This is a very straightforward request. They're asking to reduce the single-family dwelling units on the project from 120 to 69, to reduce the minimum lot width on the product from 70 to 60 feet. And the main change is to relocate the access point on Messler Road. Right now, there's an access point on that road, and they're moving it pretty significant amount to the north. Our transportation ops has reviewed that. They are recommending approval with conditions. Our planning staff has also reviewed it and are comfortable with the lot width changes, and the rest of it is a reduction in numbers. So we are recommending approval with conditions.
Okay, thank you very much for the explanation on item E6, and the applicant is here. Good morning.
Good morning. Morning again, Madam Chair and board members. Michael Horner, 14502 North Dale Mabry Highway, for the record representing Mr. Vic Abuline, owner and developer of this project. As Joe mentioned, primarily 3 reasons. We are actually reducing the number of lots on this development from 120, which was approved a couple years ago, down to 69, so a significant reduction in lots, intensity, and traffic. Additionally, we are seeking a slight modification on the lot width on a few western lots. They're abutting a forested canopy area. We are also maintaining the same square footage of 7,000 square foot, which is the prior requirement. And thirdly, as Joe referenced, we are modifying an access on Messler Road, moving it up to the northern end, reducing impacts, reducing the amount of turning movements, reducing the intersection level of service, increasing the intersection level of service, and reducing peak hour impacts. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any questions at this time, and we'll now move into public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of item E6? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to item E6? Okay, board action. Motion by Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Kemp to approve item E6. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Now move, thank you. Move to item E7.
Item E7 is in the Brandon area. It's a personal appearance 18-510. It's in a older PD approved in 1992. It's specifically dealing with Tract BL25, which is along the roadway of Bloomingdale, and it's proposing to introduce child care center into a non-residential pod that allows offices and some other non-residential uses. Staff reviewed it, felt it was a minimal change, keeping in character with the type of uses that is already approved in that pod, and we are recommending approval with conditions.
Okay, thank you very much for the explanation on item E7. And applicant is here.
Good morning,
Good
Madam
morning.
Chair, board members. For the record,
You've been
Ty-
sworn in?
I have, yes.
Thank you.
For the record, Ty Maxey, Mazer Consulting. This is a 3.5-acre property. It's located on the south side of Bloomingdale Avenue. It's located within the larger Bloomingdale PUD. We're asking to add childcare as a permitted use on this property. Property is already permitted for medical, professional office, and bank use. So we're simply asking to add the childcare use. I'm available to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any questions at this time. We'll now open up the public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of item E7? Please come forward. And please identify yourself. Have you been sworn in?
I haven't. I didn't stand. I didn't know I would be speaking. Can I raise my hand now, or?
Did you raise your hand?
I raised my hand, but I didn't stand.
Oh.
Yeah.
Clerk?
I'm just a
Did she raise
resident that has a question.
I think you're good.
Thank you. I'm Jennifer Carroll. I'm a resident of the Bloomingdale area. I often take Springvale home when there aren't car accidents there. So my question mainly, I don't speak in opposition or for. I just would like to know, there's a large difference between a medical building that sees patients throughout the day, and depending on the size of a child care center, the traffic. You're right next to Bloomingdale High School, the Starbucks, the Walmart that just got approved. It's right next to Lithia Pinecrest. There are accidents all the time. Sometimes it takes me 30 minutes to move 2 miles. My question would be, what is the size of this preschool, and what traffic impact can we expect when you have however many students are in there during peak hours when parents are trying to drop off and pick up? I'm not arguing that the area isn't in need of a preschool. There are wait lists everywhere, but I just don't know if this is the best location for it.
Okay, if you'll just stay right there, I'll get staff to help address and give us some information.
The entire pod, BL25, permits a maximum of 23,000 square feet. That doesn't necessarily reflect that's going to be the size of the child care center. The child care center doesn't have any specific restriction on it as a land use. It just is, the proposal is to introduce it into that mix of uses, which includes medical office.
So they have one big parking lot for everything in the center.
They have they have a set of entitlements that apply to pod BL25, which will be limited to 23,000 square feet, that the child care center is being proposed to be a part of.
Okay, so basically the shopping center was already approved. Is that correct, Mr. Morita?
This is an already approved development. This is the Bloomingdale PD. It's been out there for several years. This pod was approved as part of that development for that allocation of square footage, and they're just requesting that that square footage be allowed to be distributed either in part or in whole to a child care center or the other uses that are allowed.
Okay, so they're just adding like another use
Correct.
Of a building. And we do have a commissioner that has a question. Commissioner Miller, you recognize.
Let me ask this question. Let me ask this question a different way to the applicant. Have you been licensed by the county's child care licensing board?
I'm not the operator, I'm the planner, so I'm sure the operator will be licensed. They already have an existing child care within the county, so I imagine that they are.
You might not even know this either, but how many children were they licensed for? You know that?
I don't know the answer to that, but I will tell you that that the plan, the conceptual plan that we've discussed, the child care is less than half of the 23,000 square feet that is permitted on the site. I believe we're asking for, approximately 10,000 square feet of the permitted entitlements for the child care facility.
Okay, thank you. So, ma'am, thank you. The issue here is we don't have, I guess, the authority to talk about how many children will be there. That's going to be up to child care licensing. This basically is the land use.
Okay.
So that's where we are.
Okay, well then, just to put it out there, it is a very high traffic area with very small roads. So approving a child care center that, and on the exact opposite side of Springvale, they just converted something from private land use and individual home, and now they're building townhomes. So you're going to be adding all of the townhomes, and then directly upon it, a child care center, which forgive me if I'm wrong, my own children go to a school that has a capacity of 184. That's a lot of families, plus the townhomes, plus all the additional land use that has been approved recently. So that would be my only concern.
And I would, you know who the child care operator is going to be, and maybe you can put her in touch with them so she can express her concerns to them.
Right,
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of item E7? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to item E7, please come forward. Good morning.
Good
And
morning.
you've been sworn in?
Opportunity. I was sworn in.
Thank you.
My name is Norman Joseph. I'm the past president of the Pine Grove Reserve Homeowners Association, and I live at 1347 Big Pine Drive. Our concern is not to deny a property owner the right to do something with their property. We're, like this lady presented before me, really concerned about the child care part of it. The Pine Grove Reserve, which is the property right to the south of this piece of property, is a 44-unit adult over 55 community, which has no children in it. Very peaceful, quiet community. So we're concerned about adding childcare, which by definition is going to involve a lot of children, to a small business-approved area. The second concern we have is, as she stated, the traffic. We don't see, and we're not professionals, don't pretend to be, any way you're going to safely egress and in and out additional vehicles with children during rush hour on that small corner that's already greatly impacted. So we're concerned about the safety issue. We're concerned about children as it affects our community, which we believe will have a very large effect on it. And there's other concerns that we have, but probably they're more site development and building questions than they are zoning. But so that's our concerns, and we just are really concerned that this is not the proper use of this relatively small piece of property on a very busy intersection with all the additional approvals that have already gone out.
Okay, thank you very much. And do you have a question? Would you like staff to answer a question?
We've expressed our concerns. We'd like to have them taken into consideration.
Sure. We will do that as our discussion develops here at the board. Mr. Morita, do you have anything to add on this item?
The zoning conditions are going to require that they go through an access analysis and make potential improvements when they go through site engineering for the child care center. The child care center is already allowed on BL5, I believe it is, which is to the east along Bloomingdale, in the same area along the frontage of Bloomingdale. What they're proposing is to move this west, which will be at the corner of the two roadways in Bloomingdale and Springview Drive. So from that perspective, when we reviewed it, we felt that in terms of the land uses and the relationships that are on the site plan, that they were very similar in terms of moving it from one side of the site to another. They both are essentially backing up to areas where condominiums are approved, and giving the non-residential nature of the uses, that they would be compatible when the buffers and other things are required during the site development process. In terms of the transportation engineering, in terms of the details of that, we know that they'll have to go through a site engineering process. It just depends on the size of the center and the type of analysis that transportation will go through when those numbers are proposed. We have transportation staff here if you'd like to have more information regarding that process itself. Mr. Charles White's here. He can speak to that if you would like more detail on that.
Thank you. We do have some commissioners with questions. We'll start with Commissioner Kemp. You're recognized.
Well, I want to thank everyone for coming down and expressing their concerns about this particular area. I know from when I've been there, driving there, it is one of the worst congested and difficult areas to traverse in the county right there. And we have thrown down, or there's been thrown down, a lot of intensity right there without any capacity really to do anything about the road conditions there. I'm just trying to get a picture in my mind because I do support mixed uses, and I'm wondering about the access just by walking. I know that there's I think apartment complex is. Can you address if someone were to use this child care center, how much residential is there that could be accessed by walking?
Well, there is a rather large kind of multifamily apartment condominium project to the west, with several units. The good thing about childcare, in my opinion, is that traffic is typically already on the road, and it's parents going to work, so they're dropping off their children. They're making a stop to drop off their children at the childcare on their way to work or otherwise. We are required to adhere to, there are specific conditions in your land development code related to childcare. There are specific hours of operation for the outdoor play area. We're required to provide a minimum 20-foot wide buffer with a type B screening, which will be a solid fence. So that provides that additional screening and buffering from the residences to the south. Like I said, we are not proposing to develop the entire 23,000 square feet of entitlements with the child care facility. We're only proposing less than half of that. And the child care facility, actually, according to your transportation report, generates less traffic than the bank use that's already permitted on the site. We're located at an intersection that has a traffic light, so that's a benefit. And we'll have our primary access on Bloomingdale. And again, site access analysis for any off-site improvements, acceleration, deceleration lanes will be required as part of the site development review process.
Okay. I can imagine it would generate less traffic than a bank, but I think part of the problem is peak traffic, and that many people would be, especially in the mornings, at the same time, trying to drop children off there if they were using cars, whereas a bank would be a variable thing during the day at different times. Is there any reference, I guess I should say, to staff? Do you look at that when you look at how the different needs of the child care versus a bank?
In terms of the site analysis, yes, it'd probably be a good time to have Charles White speak to those issues to raise some detail to how the evaluation will be done at site engineering. The primary access is going to be along Bloomingdale. Charles, you want to speak to that?
And Commissioners, essentially the number and the location of the access and what kind of site access improvements, let Charles expound on this, is going to be a function of the number of children who are being served, and that will show the number of turns that are going to be made, and that will dictate how the site access would be required.
Charles White, Public Works Department. As Adam said, they would have to come in and do a site access analysis, and depending on the number of students and the other uses that are going to be proposed on the site, then we'd be able to assess the amount of traffic being generated to the property.
We can't, I think some of the people in the audience can't hear you, so could you?
Okay, well, what I was saying is that they would have to do a site access analysis, and that would be based on the mix of uses that they propose. So without knowing the number of students, the amount of square footage for the medical office or the other uses at this time, we couldn't assess what the impact would be. But when they do come in and they have those specific numbers, then we can look at the site access. We can determine if it's going to be restricted to right in, right out movements, or if they'll be able to make left outs. But that all would be looked at site development.
I see. Thank you. Okay. Any other, Commissioner Kemp, are you? Okay. Commissioner White, you recognize.
It seems as if we've considered, this board has considered some of the things that Mr. White is referencing at the rezoning level before. Why is it that it would be assessed at site development in this particular case and not at the rezoning level?
Commissioner, the things that Mr. White described would be a function of the number of children. So if there were the applicant's request has just requested this as a allowed use amongst the other allowed uses in that pod. If the request were to be more limited as to the number of students or more specific as to the number of students, that analysis could be performed as part of the zoning approval based on the request that the applicants made.
So we don't know the number of students at this point. Can this board ask that we have more detail on that as a part of the rezoning process?
It's certainly something the board can ask, and would look to the applicant to see whether they were in a position to limit the number of students that could be there. If that limit were included, an analysis could be done based on that number of students.
And would floor area ratio be an appropriate thing to ask for as well with respect to the rezoning of the proposed child care facility?
The pod itself has 23,500 square feet of approved uses. Okay. So we already know what the square footage will be. We don't know what percentage of that, as part of this request, is intended to be a child care facility, or the number of students. Really, the number of students will be the driving factor to do the transportation analysis, because that will dictate how many. We could use that to predict how many trips would be coming to the site.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion, Mr. Gormley, and I'm going to just ask you to give me a hand or just let me know if I run afoul.
I think I need to finish with close the public hearing.
Oh, that's
Can
right.
We come back to
absolutely.
that? And then
I'd like to be queued
go
up
back
right
to
after the public hearing.
And see if there's any other board discussion, too, before you make your motion. Okay, so is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to item E7?
I think.
Sir, you've already spoken. Thank you. Okay, so we're into board, and you have a rebuttal.
I do.
Absolutely.
Well, just briefly, if I could, we would be willing to restrict the size of the child care from the entitlements. I don't know the formula for the number of children, so I'm not real clear as to what that number would be. But since there's 23,000 square feet of entitlements approved on the site, we'd be willing to restrict to 50% of those entitlements maximum for the child care facility.
Is your child care operator here?
Our developer is here. Yes.
Not your child care operator?
No, they're the developer of the property.
Okay. I think that's the big question is the size and number of students. I think the buffering is also a question. We want to make sure there's adequate buffering. So thank you for your comments.
Do you want to table for a moment? I can talk with our developer. Maybe perhaps we'll. I haven't heard. I heard from one property owner once the notices were mailed out, and I spoke to her twice and asked to meet with them, and I hadn't heard from anyone beyond that. So this is coming a little bit of a surprise to me. So
okay, I completely understand. So we're going to have some more board discussion, and then you may be called back up for questions. Thank you. Commissioner White, you're recognized.
Is the public hearing still open? Or?
The public hearing is closed.
Oh, you did close it. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'd like to make a motion to remand this item for the purposes of formulating maximum number of students to be enrolled as a condition. Also, to have a traffic study conducted or to gather data on the impacts of traffic in and around the intersection, and then also to address the buffering issue that's come up.
The size of the center as it relates to the total square footage.
Yeah, and absolutely. Also to address the square footage of the proposed child care facility.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner White, second by Commissioner Kemp to remand. Commissioner Miller, you recognize.
Commissioner, just for clarification, since this is a minor modification, we'll take that as a continuance to the May 8th, 2018 land use hearing at 9 a.m. and we will work with the applicant and conduct those.
Right, you get all the questions answered.
I'll change the word remand to continue.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Miller, you recognize.
Thank you. I understand what Commissioner White's going with this. Let me ask a legal question, I guess a legal question. Can we, as a board, in his motion, restrict or put a number of kids, children that can have in the child care, even though this is dealing with land use? How can we do that?
Commissioners, if I understand the motion correctly, what the motion is looking for is to assess the specific impacts of the requested use. And in order to do that, we'd need to know the number of students, because that will dictate the number of trips and how the turning movements would go. If I understand the discussion, it is some concern about the operational aspects of the traffic associated with this additional use.
Okay, so what you're saying is, when we send this back, we will ask for the number of children that will be in the daycare to determine the traffic issue.
That's
but
correct.
We cannot dictate how many children they can have in the particular child care. Am I right?
We could, the board has the authority to limit the number of students that would be associated with the child care facility. Much like the private school that was on the agenda previously, there's a limit to number of students. That limit it is something that the board can include in the zoning controls on the property. It does have a bearing on how the site will operate and its relationship to the surrounding roads based on that number of students to have a drive to the amount of traffic and traffic movements generated by that use.
Well, the last issue we had, they basically said it was 109, 119.
Correct.
That was in there. This one does not have the numbers in there. My concern is that we're dictating as a board, per se, how many children you can have within that child care, which to me sounds like it's going to be a legal issue. I understand what you're saying concerning the traffic issue. If we take into a number, they say we'll have 100, and we then realize how much traffic will be there. But my concern is, how can we as a board dictate how many children they can have within that particular school? Maybe I'm missing something here. Just my concern.
Well, right now, the child care is not an allowed use there. So what's being asked for by the applicant is to add that as a use.
Right.
That part I understand what they're trying to do.
Right.
My concern is, how can we as a board determine how many children they can have in the child care? That's my concern. I understand where you're going, but that's just my concern.
I believe also that they're going to come back to us to tell us what size what they're recommending the use for, how many kids, and then we'll know what impacts on traffic and all that it will have. And at that point, I guess we could say, that's too much for the area.
That's how I understand it.
We either deny it or ask them to
restrict
to make it
a certain
less.
number.
Is that right?
Yes, that would
Okay.
be permissible within the board's
understand.
authority, and we would, of course, recommend that be done during the May meeting based on the information that is provided, if
Okay.
it's warranted.
Okay, great. Commissioner White, you're recognized.
Sure, and I just want to try to say this a little different way. So this board can restrict the number of students that would be allowed to be enrolled at this child care facility in the context of a rezoning, because that would be a function of trips generated
That's correct.
operationally
That's
at the
correct.
site.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner Kemp, your question was answered? Okay, great. So we have a motion to continue by Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Kemp. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Great, thank you all very much. We're now on item E8.
Thank you, Commissioners. Item E8, personal appearance 18-0560, located on 17707 Oakley Scott Lane in the Keystone, Odessa area. This is a small modification to a plan development that was approved in 2000. It's essentially to recognize the functionality of two parcels into a single lot for the purposes of providing cross-access to allow the combination of that property within the context of the plan development. Staff is recommending approval with conditions.
Okay, thank you very much for that explanation of item E8. Is there anything else you want to add?
The only thing I would add is I don't believe the applicant is here.
Is, the applicant is
okay.
here?
I'm sorry.
Okay, good. Thank you. Come forward. Yes, come forward to explain your item. And have you been sworn in?
No.
Okay, she needs to be sworn in if you identify yourself also.
My name is Jane Lord.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great, thank you. You have 15 minutes.
Okay. I purchased approximately 8 acres of dry land zoned ASC 1 in 2002. The only access was a mile-long dirt road, Oakley Scott Lane. To avoid travel on this road, we purchased in 2004 the Lot 18 in the planned development, and then put a driveway through to access the roads in the subdivision, to access Boy Scout Road, the county road. And I'm just asking for permission to recognize my driveway as a cross-access point between the planned development and the ASC 1 portion of my property.
Okay, cross-access, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioners, the plan development boundary does not include the cross-access. Essentially what they're asking for is just to introduce that cross-access so they can combine the portion of the plan development with the portion of the AS property.
Okay, great. Thank you. If you want to stay here, there may be questions. We're now on item E8. Open up the public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of item E8? Anyone speak in opposition to item E8? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Board discussion, motion. Motion by Commissioner Kemp, seconded by Commissioner White to approve item E8. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Okay, do we want to do E3 right now?
I believe we're ready for it, yes,
I think this would be the best
ma'am.
time to do that since we're finished with the, if the applicant for item E3 will come forward, thank you. And if you could update us on where we're at.
Commissioners, staff spoke with Mr. Javon Franks. Mr. Franks, could you come up, please? And as I understand it, Mr. Franks now understands the plan of access. Brian Grady of our staff, showed them the plan, the access to the south. I believe Mr. Frank can speak to whether or not he's comfortable with that or not, but as we understand it, he is.
Okay, we were in the public hearing portion of the meeting when we moved to continue. So I think at this time, and you'll have a rebuttal, we'll have him come back and let us know in 3 minutes or 15 minutes if you're in agreement with the plan.
Can I use all 15 minutes?
Yes.
I'm joking. No, just quick question in terms of a traffic study. Those roads in particular are fairly narrow, especially where they connect within the town of Waimama. There's not a lot of infrastructure built up, sidewalks, just drainage and whatnot. And if there's going to be an increase in traffic, has there been any, any study of the current conditions of the roads and/or how they'll be impacted by this influx of 600 homes?
Okay, so are you okay with the plan moving forward?
The number of homes is actually being reduced. The existing numbers for the plan development are 1,010 dwelling units is being reduced to 644 because of the recognition of the ELAP property.
Well, and the question is about, I guess, the impact on roads and travel through those areas, because these are not well kind of built out streets. They're narrow residential lanes. So I guess my question is about the additional traffic that will be generated with this increase in homes.
Okay, so your concern is on trip generation.
The trip generation is being reduced. Mr. Charles White is available to speak to those numbers and to the required improvements that are being recommended from transportation.
Well, let's have Charles come forward and attempt to answer these questions for you. Good morning.
Charles White, Public Works. The applicant's required the access to the south, they've got 2 local roads. They're both substandard. The applicant will be required to improve those roadways. They both lead down the State Road 674. And the applicant also has access to Westlake, and he's got to install right and left turn lanes for site access improvements. So we do recognize that there are some substandard roads down there, and the applicant will be required to address those at site development.
Okay. And sir, did you hear that? Yes, I did. The applicant is required to make the road improvements as needed. So, thank you. Okay, with the applicant, well, is there anyone else here wishing to speak in favor or opposed to item E3? Okay, applicant, you can come forward. You have rebuttal.
I don't believe I have anything to rebut, so
okay.
I'm good.
Okay, and you're okay with the road improvements that have to be made?
Absolutely.
All right. We're closed the public hearing and had the rebuttal. We're now into board discussion. Commissioner White, you're recognized.
Thank you. I really want to thank the gentleman from the community that's here to advocate for the community. These land use issues have been a top priority of mine, and I definitely understand where you're coming from and can feel your pain to some degree. What we have before us today is this minor modification that recognizes the fact that part of the original PD has been purchased by ELAP. So we're dealing with some issues where some things have been entitled long ago and are already in place. So I'm going to go ahead and move approval of the item because this just isn't the right step to address the concerns. I do want to let you know, though, that I've just asked one of my legislative aides to meet with you. We're going to help you with some issues looking forward on land use and make sure that we're keeping you and the Waimama community in the loop as things come up. I think I see her right outside the double doors here, so she'll be ready to speak with you and introduce you to our office so that we can be of assistance to you looking forward. But for this one here, for what's on the floor before us, I'm going to go ahead and move approval.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve by Commissioner White, second by Commissioner Chris. Commissioner Kemp, you are recognized.
Thank you. This in particular concerned me. I do appreciate the gentleman that came forward to address this. And I was very concerned about the number of conditions that this, and I understand the ELAP, and I don't understand exactly how it all intersects, but the lack of information about the number of conditions that have been removed under this these changes. I mean, what has the line through it here that was there before, and they may all be very reasonable and be in place, but as a board member reviewing this, I think it leaves reason to be concerned because we don't have information, and it's quite extensive. Canceled here is the developer shall be responsible for any construction cost and right-of-way needed to offset the impacts from development. Taken out. The developer shall be required to construct operational improvements at the following intersections. Again, removed. Construct dual eastbound and northbound left lanes on SR 674 at Westlake Drive and northbound receiving lanes at Westlake Drive. Removed. Construct southbound right and left turns on Westlake Drive at SR 674. Removed. Construct southbound and eastbound left turn lane at 301 at Bill Tucker Road. Removed. construct westbound right lane turn on Tucker Road at 301. Remove, the developer shall be responsible for any construction cost and right-of-ways needed to offset the impacts from development. And so on and so on. There's actually much more in here, and it might all be reasonable. There's quite a bit of conditions removed by this, and it might all be make sense in terms of the ELAP and in terms of the other issues. But when this gentleman raises this, and I'm concerned about the lack of explanation or understanding.
Okay. I'd like to ask Mr. Gormley to address.
And Commissioners, I'll address that in two ways. One, if you'd like some substantive explanation, we have staff here that can speak to those conditions being stricken. As to the point of the explanation, the point's well taken. That is something that we recognize we could explain that more thoroughly in the staff report to maybe obviate the need to ask questions and have them explained here. And in future applications, we'll provide more detailed explanation on why the conditions are being struck in the staff report, in the staff comments. That being said, would you like the staff to speak to the transportation conditions that are being
removed?
struck
Yes, I
and
would.
removed?
Just,
Yes.
I'd like to get a little bit better understanding of what it is that is being removed here and no longer required by this.
Okay, thank you.
You know, a lot of times you remove conditions, but you add others in to replace it that are even more, do more.
Yes, and in this case, I think Mr.
Okay,
White can provide more
Charles will
detail, but
address it.
this has to do with the change in the entire
Charles
Thank
White,
you.
the Public Works Department
Good
again.
morning.
At the time when this project was approved, we were still operating under concurrency, and these improvements were all off-site of the project, and they were considered to address concurrency. Now that we no longer have concurrency, we're addressing site access improvements, substandard roads, and the applicant will pay mobility fees, which will then address his off-site mitigation.
Commissioner Kim?
And that concurrency was removed as a, because of the, because we went to mobility fees rather than impact?
Yes, the county no
legislation.
longer has concurrency at this time.
2011, the
Right,
legislature
but the
did away.
Commissioner,
May I ask,
yes,
so
I'm sorry.
did the legislature actually do away with concurrency, or is it that we've chosen to do away with concurrency?
So, from a practical standpoint, the legislative change that was made in 2011 as part of the Community Planning Act, that introduced proportionate share contributions as a way to satisfy concurrency. The way that proportionate share calculation worked, it dramatically changed the way that we were able to address concurrency for projects. It resulted in contributions that were extremely minimal, and sometimes contributions that were calculated out as zero. So the concurrency regulation was removed from the comprehensive plan in the Land Development Code in 2016 as part of, in conjunction with adoption of the mobility fee. But from a practical standpoint, the preceding 5 years, concurrency really did not have the regulatory teeth. It didn't have the regulatory teeth that it once had, and it was not a tool that was working as it was intended to when concurrency was first adopted. So really 2011 was the turning point at which concurrency really no longer was a effective regulatory tool to have improvements made on a roadway capacity basis as opposed to an operational basis.
Mm-hmm. Okay, does that answer?
It did for now. I still have a lot of concerns. I mean, if in, not even, let's say in this instance, but just generally, if it's not within, are you saying that none of this could be required if it made sense by this county commission?
Under concurrency as it's now structured in the state law, we would likely not be able to require these improvements. The proportionate share formula requires that we assume that improvements are in place that aren't actually in place, and that the development can take credit essentially for that assumed improvement. So when these conditions were drafted, concurrency read differently than it does now. So a developer could agree, opt to not go proportionate share, but none have ever done that, because the proportionate share calculation is greatly advantageous to a development that is occurring on deficient roadways. In fact, the more deficient the roadways are, the more presumed improvements have to be taken into consideration that project can then take credit for in their impact calculation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we do have any further discussion? Okay, and we're done. So, okay, so we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner White that was seconded by Commissioner Chris. I thought he had enough time to leave the room for a few minutes. He's not back yet. I don't want to record the vote until he comes back. So I'll just, can somebody move to continue for this item for a few minutes?
Does he have to be here?
Well, he's seconded, but he wants to vote on this particular item. So can you move to continue for 5 minutes? This item?
Yeah, I'll move.
Until after the next item.
I'll move to continue this to after, that would be after G1, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, do I have a second? To continue? If we just keep talking, he'll be back here in a minute. Here he comes. Okay, he's back. So we have a...
My motion died for lack of a second.
Right. So his motion to continue died for lack of seconds. We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Chris, to approve item E3. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Okay, we are now on the next item, G1.
Thank you, Commissioners. We're now moving to the portion.
Let's open, I need a motion to open for oral argument.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Chris to open for oral argument. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you, Commissioners. This item is application number RZPD 17-1400. It's a rezoning proposal for plan development to essentially implement the RP2 comprehensive plan land use category. The proposal is for 108 lots. There's also a proposal in it to seek some relief from the buffering requirement, which is required on the perimeter. The land development code for these type of RP2 projects requires a 250-foot buffer along 70% of the perimeter. The applicant's agreeing to providing a 100 feet average on the north and west, and they're asking for relief from that since to the west is ELAP property. They're maintaining an average of 50 in that area. To the north is agricultural property. They're requesting an average of 100. Along the south, they're requesting a reduction down to 50. They have a letter of no objection. And on the easterly side, they're asking for a 0 buffer, and that site abuts TICO property easement. Again, they're asking for 108 lots. When staff evaluated this, staff felt that it complied with the requirements or the direction provided in the comprehensive plan, which that has recently changed. This is the category that would apply to less than 160 acres but more than 50. It also recognizes that services are available within a 2-mile radius. That information was provided as backup to the record. Staff is recommending approval with conditions. Again, oral argument has been filed.
Thank you very much. Applicants here, present the oral argument. You'll have 10 minutes.
Good morning, Cammie Corbett for the record. Just wanted to say, Joe did a great job of summarizing our request. This is a pretty standard rezoning for single-family homes. You saw the RP2 plan amendment that was approved earlier this year that allowed a site of this size to develop to the RP2 standard. We do have letters of support from the property owners who are directly affected by the reduction in buffer and to the south and to the west. And we've had no objection from any residents in the surrounding community or the neighborhood. We have recommendations of approval from all reviewing agencies, and we're seeking your support this morning. The primary reason why we filed for oral argument is just to clarify the record with respect to some testimony that was received from two individuals who reside in Temple Terrace who appeared to oppose this rezoning because they thought that this was an improper or untimely expansion of the urban service boundary. That assertion is both factually and legally incorrect. There is no proposed expansion of the urban service boundary. This is within your permitted RP2 category, and therefore we're respectfully requesting your approval this morning, and we're here to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you very much. Does that conclude your presentation? Okay, very good. We'll now go into the oral argument, and parties of record that signed up to speak. Of course, Cammie Corbett was signed up. She is the applicant. Kevin Manier, did you want to speak? Okay, and Willie Nunn is not present. And then we have Chris Gleason in opposition.
I was not sworn in.
Okay, you need to be sworn in.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay. Do I have to give my address or?
No, you don't have to give the
Christopher
address
Gleason.
anymore.
Sorry. When you increase,
Thank you. You'll have 10 minutes, so take your time.
Sorry. When you increase the urban service area by 100 plus homes, whether you define it by a line or area, that's really not the point. The point is more homes on the public utilities and ours responsibility to pay for the increased usage. I'd like to keep the lands undeveloped to combat urban sprawl. I realize it's already RP2, but you guys change the comprehensive plan all the time, every month. 80% of development should be within urban service area, only 20% outside of the area, according to Objective 1 of the future land use. Impact and mobility fees from developers do not cover future costs associated with said property, said development, leaving the county on the hook for all future expenses of increased usage. There is sensitive and protective lands in the area, multiple sides of said property. Any future development could put surrounding areas in jeopardy. Thank you.
Okay, does that conclude? That is everybody that signed up for oral argument on item G1. And is there a rebuttal?
Just wanted to have Mr. Manier put up a map that shows the location of the existing utilities that are out there that will serve this development. They've already been put in place by private developers, and this actually will maximize the efficiency of what's already out there by putting more users, and the counties can generate actually more revenue. I think you heard that testimony during our plan amendment. And while I understand this gentleman is passionate about his opposition, it's just misplaced in this particular rezoning, and we ask for your approval.
Thank you very much. Kevin, you're going to explain this? Or are we just putting it up to show us?
I'm Kevin Manier with the Genesis Group, and I'm assisting the applicant. What these lines are on this map are the sewer lines and the water lines, and they've been installed. They both have plenty of capacity. They run very close to the parcel. It's right here. It would be a financially prudent to hook them up. The lines are right there. There's plenty of capacity. It's this is the reason why that the RP2 was created.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll now move over to Planning Commission staff. Or do you have a question of the applicant? Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Can you put that map up again, please? Thank you. So the sewer lines are the blue there?
The water lines are blue. These are main lines, and then the green line is sewer. So the
Okay.
water is potable water, the green is sewer.
And the property that we're speaking of, the development is?
It's right there.
Can you outline it?
Sure.
So the water line there would be brought over to that property?
It would be extended about 100 feet south to connect up that property. And I might also add that there's a piece to the north that's under development now, and also on the other side of the T-code, there's a large project where the lines, so basically lines under already approved projects are around the parcel already today, or will be installed surrounding the parcel shortly.
So you all are footing the bill for the extension of
Yes,
that line?
ma'am, the entire bill. And that's a very important point. Because we're in the RP2, we pay the entire fee, not part of a fee. As a matter of fact, we don't get impact fee credits for these improvements because we're in the RP2.
I'd like to ask staff if permitting this extension, what is that a function of? How does that work?
Commissioner, development under the RP2 category or the planned village concept does require extension of utility lines to that project so that it be served by public water and sewer. The applicant's representative statement is correct that the extension of the lines, of the service lines through the right-of-way will be at the expense of the developer, as well as payment of capacity fees for hooking up to the system that any development hooking up would pay, so that the infrastructure cost of getting those utilities to the site will be a cost that needs to be borne by the applicant, and that will be required as part of development of the site if this were to be approved.
So would it be correct that no matter what was done here, that was something that was part of this RP2 prior to the last year?
If the site developed not as a planned village under RP2, the site would be on, the site would not have utilities extended to it. This site is using, because of its size, it is using a aggregation provision that's allowed in the comprehensive plan that's allowing that to aggregate with approved or planned development in the area, including approved or planned commercial that's detailed in the staff report. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
I have another question about the commercial waiver.
Okay.
I think I would actually like staff to speak to the commercial waiver and how it works and what it entails.
Move the item.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Higgins, seconded by Commissioner Higginbotham, to move the item. And Commissioner Kemp, are you done with your?
No, I had my question about the commercial. How the commercial waiver works, that's part of this.
Part of what we have in here is there is a motion to, as part of the language, that locational criteria can be waived for neighborhood commercial use, to allow the ability for neighborhood commercial use to actually be viable in the area. For the commercial to be viable, there needs to be, of course, ample residential density to do that. So that was the intent behind that.
So what does it allow to do that's different than if the commercial waiver wasn't there?
What is it allowed to do different?
Mm-hmm. What is this process permitting in terms of the commercial requirements?
It's giving latitude for the commercial not to have to be developed in tandem under the original RP2 with at least 25%. That's the 160 acres. But since this is between 50 and 160 acres, to make commercial more viable in the area and to make the development actually function as a true development, that's why latitude was given in waiving locational criteria.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have motion on the floor by Commissioner Higgins, seconded by Commissioner Higginbotham to approve. Oh, no, I have to go zoning hearing master. Sorry. I am planning commission first, then zoning hearing master. Almost.
Thank you,
thought
Madam
were
Chairman.
talking.
Tony Garcia, Planning Commission staff. The applicant is proposing a rezoning from agricultural rural to planned development to develop a planned village per the requirements of the Comprehensive Plan and Land Development Code for unincorporated Hillsborough County. This is in reference to what Mr. Moreta had earlier stated, that this is in reference to a plan amendment change, text amendment change that was done, defining areas between 50 acres and less than 160 acres. This application does fall within that new category. It does not change any of the other RP2 requirements currently in the plan. Therefore, the village node for this development must be accessible to the residents of the project. It shall be bounded on at least 2 sides by streets or at least 1 street and a pedestrian bicycle path in place of the 2nd street. The node shall also meet the conditions set forth by the Development Services Department. This project shall have villages with a minimum density of 3.5 dwelling units per gross acre. The applicant has also requested waivers to the buffer requirements for planned villages of 250 feet. Planning Commission staff has no problem with the waiver to the buffer along the TICO easement on the eastern boundary. Staff concurs with project buffers along the other project boundaries as outlined in the conditions provided by Development Services. The project shall also have a village node per the conditions of Development Services. The proposed project is compatible with similar projects which have been approved in the RP2 category. Based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development request consistent with the comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Thank you. And zoning hearing master.
The zoning hearing master considered the rezoning for a planned village within the RP2 future land use category and found that the proposed project met the intent of the RP2 planned village policies under the comprehensive plan, and that the applicant justified waivers to minimum commercial development and specified buffering for planned villages. The zoning hearing master found that approval of the subject plan development would not expand the urban service area, but rather the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan's allowances for development within the RP2 plan category. The zoning hearing master therefore found that the proposed project met the intent of the RP2 planned village policies of the comprehensive plan and recommended approval.
Okay, thank you. We are now on the board vote. So we have motion by Commissioner Hagan, second by Commissioner Higginbotham to approve item G1. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 6-1. Commissioner Kemp voted no.
Okay, we're on item G2.
Thank you, Commissioners. This is a rezoning for Plan Development 17-1264 located at 6209 South 36th Avenue in the Greater Palm River planning area. This is a rezoning to Plan Development from ASC1 and RSC6. It is in the Res 6 area of the comprehensive plan in the urban service area. A large portion of the site, predominantly the site is zoned RSC6. There's a small portion of the site currently zoned ASC1. The applicant is proposing to allow the ASC1 uses across the site, and essentially the thrust of it is to allow the parking of 2 semi-trailers, tractor and trailers on the site. This is a remedial action to remedy some code enforcement activity that's occurred related to the site. The RSC6 zoning does not allow the parking of a semi-trailer. The agricultural zones do. The agricultural zones, when the LDC speaks to that requirement, it ties the parking of the semi-tractor trailer either to a parcel that is residentially developed and allows the parking of 1 truck there, and it also speaks to exemptions for the parking of commercial equipment relative to agricultural activities. When staff reviewed this, essentially took into consideration the fact that it's in a Red 6 planning area, the fact that it's predominantly zoned RSC 6, felt that it could not support the change to the agricultural zone to allow the semi-truck parking, felt that it would essentially be setting up potential problems in the future as the area moves to a more suburban pattern. We are recommending denial of the particular plan development. Oral argument has been filed for this case.
Correct. And we do need a motion to open for oral argument. Motion by Commissioner Miller, second by Commissioner White. Please record your vote.
Good morning, everyone. My name is
Motion
Josue
carried
Garcia.
7-0.
Okay, just wait 1 second. Now, you're the applicant. If you please,
Yes.
have you been sworn in?
Say it again?
Have you been sworn in?
Oh,
Good morning. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
yes, sir.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry. Good morning, everyone. My name is Josue Garcia. I live in 6209 36th Avenue.
Excuse
Mr.
me 1
Garcia,
second.
excuse me, we just need to take care of a procedural point. The applicant did file the request for additional evidence, and that request is not supported, does not meet the standard to be admitted, so I'd request that the board make a motion accordingly.
Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Chris to not allow additional evidence requested to be presented on item G2. Please record your vote.
Can you start?
No, wait 1 second.
Motion carried 5-1. Commissioner Kemp voted no.
So you'll need to make sure that your testimony you present is what you gave at the zoning hearing master.
Okay.
Okay, you're ready to go?
Okay.
You have 10 minutes.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I may, in reference to the no vote on this motion, if there had been enough no votes to allow that evidence to be presented today, what would the implications have been for this board?
What that evidence consisted of was some photograph that did not really relate to the substantive issue so much as at hand.
Would it have put us on not as solid of legal footing in making our decisions here?
That's correct. For the admission of additional evidence, there's a high standard in the code. Either the applicant had to have had no ability to present that evidence at the hearing, or in the case of a person wishing to provide testimony, that person would have to prove that there is some reason that kept that person from being able to be present
And
or
so
put that evidence into the record. And in this case, it was not justified.
And so
by
that the
applicant.
record's abundantly clear, that motion was made on the advice of counsel.
Oh,
That's
yes.
correct, and
Thank you.
each time that request comes forward, that is the procedure. I review that request and consider it in light of the code requirements.
Right. And we discussed it in the briefing that I received from the land use staff. So I felt very comfortable with, the position that the county attorney's office has taken. So, okay, so you can now start on your presentation. You'll have 10 minutes.
Thank you. The reason why I would like to have the opportunity, because I can risk losing my job if my semi-truck were to stop functioning. The mechanical cost to fix it would cost to me weeks or months. The way to find and receive to mechanical parts or sometimes too long for the semi-truck compared to the other vehicle. If I given the opportunity of having the spare truck, my family would not be risking necessaries, and neither will there be an accumulation of debt. My truck is light compared to the garbage truck.
Sorry.
Okay, hold on. Okay. The truck is light compared to the garbage truck, and it will never to attach it to the trailer. A garbage or recycling truck weighs around 51,000 pounds loaded and about 33 pounds empty. My truck's weight is 18,650 pounds with fuel, so it is fair from beginning as heavy as the garbage truck. And like I say, my truck will never be attachment to the trailer or any other attachment because the company works for Beeline its own trailers, and they must be kept in their lot. If anyone doesn't like the view of trucks, then there is no problem since the truck would be behind my house, not on the front. I have 2.09 acres, and a part is where no one can see it. I don't think anyone would be burdened by me having an agricultural zone since all my surrounding neighbors and agricultural zones.
Mr. Garcia, are these, sir, if you could take that down, please. That was the picture that I spoke to you about that could not be introduced. All the materials the only materials that you can put up there to show to the board this morning are the same documents that you showed at the zoning hearing master meeting. So there's a few documents that you did have in the record that you can show that you did put up at the zoning hearing master hearing, but nothing more than that.
I have evidence, like in my neighborhood, I have a lot of neighborhoods that having trucks, 1 through 3 corporate trucks,
Could you please, Mr. Garcia, if you would not mind, bring me the documents that you'd like to show, and I can look and see if they're going to match with the documents that you had showed at the zoning hearing master meeting.
Okay.
And this is for the purpose, sir, of making sure the proceeding is done legally. If you'd like to show anything else on the overhead, I can look at it to see ahead of time if it matches.
Can I ask, I want to ask you a direct question. Were you explained perfectly your rights at the land use hearing meeting and what it would mean coming here to the county commission with your item after that? I mean, have you ever done a land use item before, either the city or the county? You have? Okay. So have you gone through this process before with the zoning hearing master and coming to the land use meeting to get approval for your items?
Okay.
Okay. I think, can we just take a moment? I think we're going to have to get somebody to help us with communication here. This gentleman, I think, is having a hard time understanding. Could you help
Good morning,
this
County
gentleman?
Commissioners. Yeah, Marisela Medrano from Development Services Department. The attorney was asking you, la abogada estaba pidiéndote que si le mostrabas las cosas que querías poner allá, que mostraste en la audiencia anterior. Muéstraselas, por favor. Sí, pero es que quería que se las llevaras, pero no se las llevaste, entonces pensamos que no estabas entendiendo. Entonces muéstrale las hojas. ¿Esas hojas las mostraste en la audiencia? Ok, entonces muéstraselas a ella. ¿Cuáles quieres poner? ¿Quieres poner estas?
Todas estas, sí.
Ok, llévaselas a ella.
Pero que no piensas quién era la que estaba.
La señorita,
Okay, I think for the sake of, we're going to make a motion to continue this item to the next meeting, so this gentleman has time to work with staff and understand exactly what's going on.
Madam Chair.
Yes. Commissioner Miller, you're recognized.
Ma'am. Ma'am. Could you make him understand that I'm going to make a motion to continue this item until our next meeting, which will be May 8th? May 8th at 9 a.m.? So that he can get a clear understanding of what is going on and what he's doing, what he needs to bring forth. That's my motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner, seconded by Commissioner White. And would you also make sure that every dealing he has here, he has a translator with him moving forward?
Yes, ma'am. We did anticipate, I believe he had somebody that was helping him at the hearing master hearing with translating, and we did expect that person to be here today, so we'll make sure
Oh, that person is not here today?
Apparently
That
not.
helped him?
Apparently not here
Okay,
today.
so
It was
that's
a
part of the
family member
problem.
that was helping.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner White to continue item G2 to the May 8th, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
May 8th meeting. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
And please explain to him that we're apologize for the lack of communication or miscommunication, and that we'll get it right for the next meeting. Okay, we're ready to go to item H1A and H1B.
H1A and H1B, Mike Williams will be making the presentation on both items. The first item, H1A, is a development agreement, which the board has seen one time before. And the related item is the development order changes to reflect what is actually being proposed in H1A. Mike?
And just to clarify, so we can present, he's going to present both items, and we're going to vote on both items. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Morning, Mike.
Good morning. Yes, and there actually will be public hearings for the DA and the DO, and we'd like to do those together.
Okay.
So this morning, we're here to conduct the second of two required public hearings for the development agreement and the first and only public hearing for the development order. To amend and restate an existing development agreement and DO between NNP-IV Lake Hutto LLC and Hillsborough County. The purpose of this amendment is to modify the developer obligations regarding the widening of Bell Shoals Road. Purpose of this public hearing is to take public comment and to approve both agreements. Agreement becomes effective after it's been recorded in the county's public records. We're asking the board to hold the public hearings and approve both agreements this morning. There was one error in the backup for the DA, the developer agreement public hearing, and that is the backup stated that payment would be made by March 31st, 2018. Obviously, that hasn't happened, and since the agreements haven't been approved, but the payment date will now be April 30th, 2018. So this would be a public hearing.
Okay, great. Thank you for the application. Commissioner White, do you want to ask your question of him? Or wait?
Yeah, I think it's appropriate to ask before the public hearing. I just
Okay, you recognize.
Thank you. I know I went over this at the regular Board of County Commission meeting where this was first presented, but just for the record, I just want to get it on record that the proposal here is for Hillsborough County to become the project manager, if you will, to oversee the project, but Hillsborough County and therefore the taxpayers are not going to be asked, nor will they be contributing any dollars to this project that they wouldn't have otherwise been contributing under the development agreement as it currently stands. Is that correct?
Yes, the developer first of all, they will be giving us a financial contribution cash, and that was the payment I was speaking about earlier by April 30th. They're also giving up several impact fee offsets, which we would need to cover with the cash. And that's how we would use all that money to construct the project, or hire the contractor to construct the project.
And no one in any way, shape, or form is getting off the hook, so to speak, with respect to anything that they're obligated to.
That's correct.
Great. And with respect to the natives that we're going to likely lose in the corridor, we're going to mitigate's probably not technically the right term, but we're going to mitigate for that through our landscaping plan, the portion of it that we're overseeing.
Correct.
Great.
Yeah, there'll be native landscaping, and then around the Bloomingdale HOA, they have some specific landscaping that they wanted around there, replacement landscaping.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, we've had the applicant presentation. We'll now move into the public hearing portion of the item for item H1A and H1B. Is anyone here wishing to speak in favor of item H1A, H1B? Here we come. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Andrea Zellman, Buchanan, Ingersoll, Rooney, 401 East Jackson Street. I'm here on behalf of the developer, and I have with me Alex McLeod and Rick Stevens from the company. Honestly, I'm just happy to answer any questions. You've had a long meeting already, so I wasn't planning to make a presentation, but happy to answer any questions. And do want to thank your staff. We've been working on this particular change to the development agreement for almost 2 years now, and it's been a long process, but they've been very helpful and have stringently represented the county, strenuously represented the county's interests throughout that process, so thank you.
Well, we thank you all. I know this is a long time coming. So it's a project that's been in the works, I think, since I was in the legislature. So thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of item H1A and H1B? Anyone speak in opposition to item H1A, H1B? Okay. Motion by Commissioner Higginbotham to approve items H1A, H1B, seconded by Commissioner White. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote.
Motion carried 5-0.
Great. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. This brings us to two more related items, H2A and H2B. Commissioners, H2A is a personal appearance 18-0388. This is essentially an adjustment of the zoning conditions and zoning boundary to recognize this area as a residual parcel left behind due to the rezoning that's proposed in H2B. H2B would otherwise be on consent if not for this condition edit that is necessary for the residual portion of the original PD. The rezoning proposal is essentially proposing a 258-bed community residential home or 57 single-family units. It also proposes approximately 25,000 square feet of CG uses. Again, the rezoning would otherwise be on consent if not for the edit necessary to the boundary and the property left behind in the personal appearance. Staff is recommending approval of both items. H2A is a public hearing. Both items can be handled in a single motion if the board desires.
Thank you very much. We will do so. And the applicant, please come forward. Have you been sworn in?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Claire Clements, 9804 West Park Village Drive, Tampa, Florida. The first item, which is this PRS, is primarily, this was a whole city block, and after the original PD, the county came in and bought 3 of the lots in the northeast corner and made a stormwater pond, and hence we have to modify the original PD to remove the stormwater pond, which is the county's, out of it. So that's the first motion. Should I roll into the next?
Yes, please. Thank you.
All righty. Excuse me. With your permission, I'd like to hand these out to the board.
You give them to the clerk, they'll pass them out for you.
Commissioners, I'm going to make this brief, but basically, you know all the main facts about this project, that it is, you know, it's almost a whole city block. It is located on Nebraska between Fowler and Fletcher. It's in the area where Mark Sharp's working to do all his thing out there. But what you don't know is kind of interesting. I just thought I might tell you a little bit about it. Is the gentleman who owns the property spent years assembling this one block of property. He is a huge war hero. He's a veteran. He's a Purple Heart. And he spent all his money on this property. The goal, or I guess the vision, if you will, here, is that we create a project just for veterans. This is so close to the VA hospital. It's like 5 blocks from the VA. I've had a lot of interest in some tax credit guys that want to help do some, bring the money down. I look forward to contacting all of you after the approval of this project. I had to hold myself back before because I knew I had to come down here. But, so we've given it a name. We're calling it Fortress Village because we're hoping that it's a place for the real vision is that veterans can come stay here while they're seeking treatment at the VA hospital versus maybe staying in an old motel. And this is where they can be together and receive other services. We've had a lot of interest from Volunteers of America, Mission United, a lot of different groups that want to do something. And this whole rezoning is simply, it's all the uses we're requesting, we're already on the property. We just kind of reconfigured things a little bit, and that's it. And we look forward to your approval.
Well, I'm just saying, from my standpoint, I look forward to approving. This is a great project.
Thank you. I think so, too.
Is he here? Is the gentleman here?
No, he just had heart surgery about 2.5 weeks ago. And, but he's passionate about this piece of land. He calls me at least every week to go out there and pick up the trash. And I do. And because there's a lot of homeless people that have been sleeping out there, and there's a mission next door that feeds them. And, but the real goal, and I'm not quite sure how to get to every component of it yet, but the real goal is that I don't necessarily want to do it as a tax credit because that's competitive. You can't control what can happen. But the true goal is that this place be something great for the vets who are getting care at the hospital. That's it.
I know, and I'm ready. Motion by Commissioner Miller, second by Commissioner Higginbotham. We do have to do the public hearing, to move forward, and we do have a commissioner, but I do want to put you in touch with our Tampa Hillsborough Homeless Initiative group that I know will just jump on board and help you out any way they can to link you up to whatever you need to make this happen sooner than later. So thank you again. Please tell him that we thank him. So Commissioner Krish, you're recognized.
Yeah, a couple of questions. The cottages, what would they be constructed out of and what size would they be?
I'm looking at a couple of different options, to be honest with you, and I can't present them because I didn't have it drawn up at the GHM. But we're looking at, there'll be some 1-bedroom units, some 2-bedroom units, and even possibly a 2-story setup for maybe veterans who don't have handicap issues or can reach the 2nd floor. So possibly 1- and 2-story in the back and 4-story, Mr. Christ, in the front.
Okay, question of staff. Do we have guidelines for the sizing of these units? I just don't want a situation where it turns into a camp and these are 10 by 10
Oh, no.
little wooden structures where we're actually approving a campground instead of what we think we're approving.
Commissioners, we don't have a minimum size for these structures on the conditions. However, we do have the county's property maintenance code that does prescribe minimum size for dwelling units, and it
per occupant.
Per occupant, yes,
Okay.
based on the number of occupants in there, and that would preclude a substandard sized a dwelling. That we don't have any reason to believe that.
I'm very familiar with the site. It used to be a mobile home park, and there's been several attempts to try to do different things there, and it's very centrally located on Nebraska.
Thank you.
And a project to assist the vets, this would be a good location. The only concern I have is the university area has been flooded with specialty projects and the relocation of people out of the city of Tampa, and it's busting at the seams. So I just want to make sure we have a good, clear picture of what we are approving here, and it's not a campground.
Absolutely not. In fact, you're right. Ironically, this was called something Motor Coach Lodge.
Yes.
And it was a bunch of little tiny cottages and
some trailers, yeah.
No, sir, this is a modern, new age. The goal is not to hurt the veteran, but to create a better living environment. That's the goal.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Kress, for those questions. We're now going to move in the public hearing portion of this item. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of item H2A and H2B? Anyone want to speak in opposition? Item H2A, H2B. We have a motion by, it was Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Higginbotham. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Again, our
Thank
best to you.
I'll be contacting every one of y'all.
Thank you. Item H3A, item H3B.
Commissioners, this brings us to item H3A and related item H3B. Item H3A is a personal appearance. This personal appearance has been heard by the board at its last board meeting and is also part of this agenda because the applicant is actually Hillsborough County and not Hillsborough County School Board, as noted on the item, which requires 2 public hearings. This is the second of those 2, and a vote will be necessary today. The purpose of this personal appearance is to work in tandem with the rezoning that's actually item H3B. H3B will rezone the majority of the plan development that applies to the subject that will then become the residual parcel, which will be left behind if the rezoning is approved. Right now, the parcel is about a 49-acre site of the PRS. It will leave behind approximately 2.5 acres, and the entitlements that have been calibrated along with that into 3 development options. Those development options include various types of access as it relates to the options that are proposed on the school board rezoning, which is item 3B. Item 3B, which would otherwise be on consent, if not for, it would be on consent because it has all approvals, if not for the action that's required by the personal appearance to amend the plan development to recognize the existing residual parcel and calibrate the entitlements that are left behind. The school board proposal is essentially 3 development options. It proposes a high school, a middle school, and then it proposes to use the residential entitlements and various different development options along with different access options. It's along 672 in the Riverview area, as is the amended PD. The public hearing is applicable to item 3A. Again, item 3B would otherwise be on consent. There are changes to conditions that the applicant is proposing to item 3B to recognize the calibrated dwelling unit count that they will hand out as part of this as well. The board can consider both these items in a single motion, but it does require a public hearing for item 3A.
Okay, thank you very much. Applicant here?
We're the applicant for item 3A.
You're the applicant?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure you're working in partnership?
We're working in partnership with the applicant of 3B, which is the school board.
Well, I think, yes. Why don't you come forward, please?
Morning, Commissioners. Gina Grimes with the law firm of Hill Ward Henderson, 101 East Kennedy Boulevard.
Have you been sworn in?
Yes, I have.
Thank you.
We all have. We're here this morning representing the School District of Hillsborough County, and we are applying for a rezoning for, that would allow a new high school up to 2,500 students. And the location of the high school, if you want to put it up there, Kevin, is on the north side of Baum Road, just east of 301 in Riverview. This area of the county is served by East Bay and Leonard High Schools right now. Both of those schools are over capacity. In addition to the existing students in those schools, We also know that there will be students arriving at those schools, additional students arriving at those schools soon, because there's been approximately 30 subdivisions that have been approved in the area served by these high schools. We expect, those subdivisions have not yet been built out, but we expect them to be over the next 3 to 5 years. So the new high school would relieve the overcapacity at East Bay and Leonard, and then it would also allow additional capacity for the new students that have not yet arrived. And one of the biggest benefits to this site, and you can see it on the overhead, I've circled the Leonard attendance boundaries and the East Bay attendance boundaries, and the star that you see is the location of the subject site. So it's literally a perfect location to relieve the capacity issues at East Bay and Leonard, because it's right in between the boundaries. It'll facilitate redrawing those district boundaries when that time comes. And again, it'll serve a lot of the new development that's occurring in the area. And just to give you some site specifics, it is a 51 acres. It's in the Res 4 comp plan category. It is in the urban service area. 3 of the 5 parcels comprising the site are already owned by the school district. As mentioned, it was previously approved as a PD for a middle school. It had some other development options in the event the school district didn't close that allowed single-family development. What we're proposing in this rezoning is to remove that parcel that you can see that's sort of grayish, add the parcel number 5 to the west of that, and parcel number 1 is under contract with the school board. 1 and 5 are. So those 5 parcels collectively would comprise the 51-acre site. At the ZHM, we presented testimony from Kevin Menier, who was our expert planner. He addressed the site plan, the conditions, the compatibility of the development with the surrounding uses, which is essentially residential, and then also consistency with the comp plan. Randy Cohen, our expert transportation planner, addressed the transportation conditions on that road, on-site and off-site improvements that will be required. As you know, the ZHM recommended approval. She found it consistent with the comprehensive plan. She also had to make a finding with respect to the interlocal agreement that exists between the school district and the county with respect to siting new schools. We had to go through a separate consistency evaluation process for that. She found it consistent with that interlocal agreement requirement. In addition to the ZHM recommending approval, the staff also, as Joe has said, found it approvable with conditions. None of the reviewing agencies had any objections. We've worked with staff on all the conditions and made all the required revisions that they've asked for. And I know you've had a long meeting, and if you'd like, we could re-present Kevin and Randy's testimony if you'd like to hear it. If not, we would request your approval of this item.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any questions at this time. We do have a motion to approve by Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Miller. And we'll just move to the public hearing portion of the meeting. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of item H3A, H3B? Anyone speak in opposition, H3A, H3B? We have a motion to approve by, which was it, Miller or White? Well, Miller and made the motion, then White seconded. On item H3A, H3B. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
Okay, thank you. Item H4A, H4B.
H4A and H4B are both public hearings. They're related to each other in the sense that the 2 planned developments share a property line, and they're proposing an access point to connect the 2 BDs. 4A is PRS 18-0496. It's on 5745 Providence Road in Brandon. PD 14-113. And item 4B is also in Brandon. It's on east side of South Toronto Lake Road, approximately 2,000 feet north of Bloomingdale Avenue, and it's PD 13-0491. Again, this is to provide cross-access to allow both these developments to essentially function as a single project. Staff is recommending approval of both with the conditions, and a public hearing is required for both of these cases can be handled as a single item, however, if you choose to.
H4A, H4B. Applicant, good to see you again. Please,
Thank you.
have you been sworn in?
I have.
Good,
I have.
thank you.
Morning, Madam Chair. Board members Roy Major, WRA Engineering, 4260 West Lineball. I'm representing Providence Baptist Church and David Weekly Homes. What we're requesting is a cross-access point between two existing planned developments. What I'm showing is just a vicinity map. There's the two north-south collector roads to the west side. Excuse me, north is up. To the west side is Gornto Lake. To the east side is Providence. Just to the south out of view is Bloomingdale Avenue. In the red are the two PD parcels. The green arrow is what we're asking for. We're just asking for a cross-access between these two existing planned developments. Transportation staff indicated they thought that it would actually take some trips off of Bloomingdale Avenue. We feel that's the benefit to the community for this request. If you can see someone in the western, the Mariposa parcel, if they wanted to go to the southwest, they could access the other parcel, go south on Providence, and therefore thereby avoiding Bloomingdale Avenue. So it does take some trips off Bloomingdale in this vicinity. So with that said, I'd be glad to answer any questions and appreciate your approval.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll go to the public hearing portion. Is anyone here wishing to speak in favor of item H4A, H4B? Anyone in opposition? Please come forward. Have you
Morning,
been sworn in?
No, I have not.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
This is my first time going to one of these, so I'm a little bit nervous. So,
Oh, don't worry, really.
I kind of got thrown into this by my neighborhood.
Oh, I'm
So-
serious. You have plenty of time, so don't. I mean, you've got.
So I
15
currently
minutes.
live in the Mariposa neighborhood on Alcon Blue. My name's Chad Holt. A lot of the residences have expressed their concerns, and we all socialize together. And one of the main concerns is that we have tried to reach out to the builder in regards to these plans, and we have not gotten any information from them. They won't return calls, so we're kind of forced to come to this hearing to find out what's going on. One of the main concerns is the existing community members that have already moved in there. They have, when they moved in, they already had the expectations that it would be a certain amount of residents in this whole neighborhood. A lot of the concerns are in regards to our community center. Our community center was built with the intentions of having 169 residents in the development. If we open up an access road to there, then it's going to subject to another additional 60 residents into the community center. We aren't sure if we're in approval of this expansion or an opposition, as we don't have enough information. We do have some requests if this is going to happen. We would request that the community center be expanded if it's going to allow access to 60 more homes. We are concerned with the traffic. With that southeast gate being placed there, from my understanding, the only option is to be able to turn right on Providence. We think that's going to cause a lot more congestion. If we were to actually put that gate or that access road in place, we would also want to be able to, if we could make it possible to turn left, whether we open up Purity Lane to a more accessible road. Right now, Purity Lane is at the northeast side of the map. That's only an emergency exit road. Once the community is finished, that road is going to be gated off. So our only entrance and exit is the northwest corner. Now, if we were to open up those roads, then that would alleviate traffic going across the neighborhood. The majority of this community has little children living there. We already have a problem with traffic and the speed limits there. It is a 25-mile-per-hour zone that we have requested to get lowered, but we've been denied. We have problems with construction traffic coming through the northwest gate, which there's signs posted everywhere that construction vehicles are not allowed to use there. They sit at the gate. and they try to tailgate people in, and we have addressed that with the builder several times. And now with the addition of trying to open up another gate to that community on the southeast side, we're fearful that's going to keep the traffic coming through. They do not adhere to the speed limits there. We have addressed this with the builder. I think it's gotten a little bit better, but it's still a problem, and we have no communication with the builder to make it better. I'm trying to read over some of the comments that people have wanted to address. Additionally, if there is going to be a southeast gate, some of the residents are requesting that it be a barcode access gate or key code. And then, let's see. Additionally, we're worried about costs. How is this going to affect the homeowner association fees? It has not been brought to our attention if this is going to affect us, whether there's going to be, CDD fees. We're worried about the wear and tear on all of our roads with the construction vehicles, and how is that going to be addressed? Additionally, according to our homeowners association, or what the builder has stated to us, we do get to acquire the homeowners association. Right now the builder is in charge of the homeowners association. We were told that once it gets to 90% capacity that we would take over the homeowners association so that we have more of a voice in what we want to do. And will this new addition that they're wanting to add on with that gate, how does that affect our timeline of taking over the homeowners association? We are ready to take over at any time because we're not happy about the way the builder has been taking care of things for us. Everything's got a lot of wear and tear, and it's already running. Everything's getting run down before the building of the neighborhood is completed. So we just want to have a stronger voice, and I do believe that's all the requests. I know additionally with the community center, the amenity center, if we are to expand, there are some other requests that the homeowners would like to be added to that. I don't know if that's pertinent to this this setting, but if that's something the commissioners want to know, I could address that. So that's it.
Okay. Staff, do you have anything to add? I mean, he had a list of questions.
Commissioners, most of those items, as I understood them, had to do with the operation of the site and the homeowners association and their responsibilities relative to the residents. The vast majority of those items that he was addressing are not regulated by the zoning of the site and really are more a homeowner association issue. The request that the board has would be to allow cross-access between these two developments that would allow physical movement of people and vehicles between the two adjacent planned developments. I think a lot of what he has raised are issues that would need to be dealt with either with the builder and what their future intents are, or with the homeowners association.
I mean, okay. Well, let's hear from other commissioners. Commissioner Higginbotham, you're recognized.
To the guy that said he's nervous, who didn't act nervous. Thank
Oh,
you.
man, I'm shaking like a limb.
We all do that up here. But anyway, welcome. You have reached out to the builder of your project or to the adjoining project, or is it the same builder for both properties?
We have been told that it's Meritage is the builder. They're wanting to possibly do a P4. Right now we're in a 3-phase community, and they're wanting to do a 4th phase. So we assume that it's Meritage. All I've been told is several community members have tried to reach out to them, and they're not getting any responses because they keep trying to ask questions. And our latest response said that they were not going to do P4 and that they were just going to not do it. That's what we were told by.
Would you feel better if you had a sit-down meeting with the builder and representatives from that from their company to understand what's going to happen? And
oh, of course, we've been requesting that. And
well, I've said before, it's a kill switch with me, not to necessarily deny, but to delay this until homeowners, community members can meet with those who are making changes that affect them. And I'd like to ask Representative, how do you feel about us postponing this till next meeting until the community can sit down and talk to the builder and come back with a better feeling?
Yes, sir. Just to address a couple things, just a couple facts about the previous statement, that toward the east, the Providence side is a full access. It's not just right out. It's planned. It's entitled to be a full access. It would remain private. There is a gate there on both sides. Also, Purity Lane is not planned to be closed. It was constructed as emergency access. It would emergency exit, excuse me. It would remain so. So just those two facts to get those on the record. The applicant would be open to a continuance motion.
All right. Well, I'll make a motion to continue and ask that the applicant and the homeowner association sit down and have a meeting and then come back. And I think there was a commissioner who used to say, have a kumbaya. So thank you.
And the date will be May 8th at 9 a.m.
Great. So we have a motion by Commissioner Higginbotham, seconded by Commissioner Miller to continue the item to May 8th to answer the concerns of the residents in meeting with the builder. So, okay, seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you.
That concludes our land use agenda. Now we'll move forward into the Planning Commission agenda.
Right, we will officially adjourn the land use meeting, and
Commissioner?
Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Yes, I know this isn't timely to when the parties were here, but I felt, I thought about it afterwards, I should have done this at the time. When Mr. Garcia came in and was having the issues that, I was a no vote in terms of the fact that he was not satisfied about what he could not bring, or maybe didn't even know to bring to the zoning master hearing. And I'd like to make a motion in regard to that. I know he's not here, but to remand it so that he has an opportunity to bring forward
We
that.
already did that.
We didn't remand it though, did we? We continued
continued
it.
it.
I'd like to remand it so that he has an opportunity.
No.
We've already moved from that hearing.
Right.
The reason, Madam Chair, if I may?
Yes,
The
Commissioner
reason
White.
a remand wasn't in order is because the zoning hearing
Right.
master wasn't involved, because it was a minor modification, correct?
Right, no.
There was a zoning hearing, master hearing, and I think that the challenge today was that the gentleman had assistance at the zoning hearing, master hearing. He had his daughter there who presented the case for him, had a full grasp of the English. She was able to
Right.
speak English well.
And he came here and she was not here.
She was not here. We
so
did expect
that
her
left
to
him
be
with
here.
a communication gap, and I don't think it was anything that would require a whole new hearing with the zoning hearing master. That's in my opinion. And I would hope the board would agree. Commissioner Miller, you're recognized. Pardon me? Oh, okay. So we're going to adjourn the land use meeting, and we will now call to order the Comprehensive Plan Amendment Workshop. And this is the Board of County Commissioners Workshop on amendments to the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County. The workshop is intended to introduce the proposed comprehensive plan amendments included in the January 2018 Comprehensive Plan Amendment Cycle. The amendments are scheduled to be considered by the board for transmittal during a public hearing on April 19, 2018 at 6 p.m. and are scheduled to be considered by the board for final adoption during a public hearing on June 14th at 6 p.m. I'll now turn the meeting over to Planning Commission staff for their presentation of the amendments.
Okay. Hello, Commissioners. Randy Kranchak, Planning Commission staff, a briefing on two privately initiated map amendments that we received in our January submittal cycle. First one is 18-01. It's on County Road 579. It's in the Thanona-Sassa Community Planning Area, and it is in the rural area. There you can see the site outlined in pink on the aerial. Just to the south there, you see the urban service area line and the interchange at County Road 579, also referred to as Mango Road, and Interstate 4. Current land use is residential 4. They have requested a light industrial plan, which would require, if approved, site plan submittal at time of rezoning. This is an aerial of the land use directly across the street from this site. It is concrete plant, and ancillary facilities. This is a larger aerial of the site. Here you see again the interchange at I-4. This is the site here. Cascade over here. So as you can, this is about 2,000 feet to the interchange at I-4. Under residential 4, they could do up to about 76 dwelling units. They could do no residential under light industrial plan. Non-residential development under residential 4 could be up to 175,000 square feet. It could be up to 418,000 square feet of light industrial uses. Relative to some plan policies that support this amendment, compatibility policies 1.4, 16.2, 16.3, and I think it's important to note that as part of the Thonona-Sasset Community Plan in 1995, the Board of County Commissioners adopted a land use policy which would allow commercial uses not meeting locational criteria, things of that nature, between Interstate 4 and Pruitt Road, primarily because of the Taylor Road landfill, which is in this immediate area, and some of the implications that that has had over the past years on residential development and their private wells. We've had no agency objections relative to this plan amendment, the FDO, other than FDOT, which has expressed some concerns about the operational capacity of Interstate 4 and Interstate 75, and they recommend that a detailed traffic analysis accompany any rezoning proposal. So I'll be happy to answer any questions on that one, 1801. If not, I can move to 1803.
We do have a question. Commissioner White, you're recognized.
Yeah, in my mind, FDOT's concerns regarding our interstate system is of great concern. We already have serious problems in those corridors. So, I understand that they're recommending that an analysis, a traffic analysis, be conducted with any development proposal, but the ship's sort of already left the harbor at the point that this, at such time that this comprehensive plan amendment may be approved. So how can we address those concerns at this level?
So, Commissioners, if this will come to you in the form of a public hearing a week from Thursday on the 19th, if the board, it's a small scale. Large scale. So if the board votes to transmit at that time, DOT will provide official comments into the record. The board could take that into consideration if it were to be transmitted and decide on whether to adopt it or not, or based on the strength of their concerns. As I understand their comments, they're not their official transmittal comments, but more of a informal review comment.
Sure.
And final adoption.
They could specify specifically what their concerns would be about the nature of the capacity of the interchange, and that the board could take that into consideration whether to approve or not. But you are right that once the application is approved, if it were to be approved, that's the standard under that new comp plan category would be the standard under which we'd be reviewing future zoning requests and would not have the latitude that we do at the comp plan stage.
Sure. And that's a tough one, right? Because in my mind, we really need this from an economic development perspective. We need this type of development, but And we have serious, serious problems on I-4 and I-75, so you would have these sort of two competing interests. I guess the board at that point will just have to weigh the two and see which one outweighs the other, provided that FDOT does indeed include some agency comments.
Correct, and if we do have
on
those,
transmittal.
sorry, if we do have those comments, we can come back, be prepared to the board with some recommendations on perhaps ways that those could be handled together, perhaps.
Okay.
We've had several applications that have had a concurrent zoning and comp plan amendment, depending on the level of their concerns. That may be something that would be a method to address the specific concerns that the state might have.
Well, that's the purpose of these workshops, right?
Yes.
So I'll ask both planning commission staff and county commission staff to be thinking about how the two issues might be addressed as it comes to the board.
Certainly.
Well,
Economic development on the one hand,
right.
Traffic concerns, particularly with our interstate system on the other hand.
Certainly. We'll do.
I mean, we actually went through a lot of this in the ULI presentation, and that's what I was going to ask you. Is this being considered as part of what ULI was recommending?
This jives with what the ULI recommended for this node.
Okay, so it does. Okay,
Yes.
because I think you should include that in your presentation when you come back. And staff, maybe county staff could be alongside of you to also show that you guys are working together on this particular item, because I think this is really important. This is like a first step into, development of the I-4 corridor. I mean, we haven't taken a major steps yet, and this is a big one for me. Now, final approval, adoption isn't until June 14th. So we have plenty of time. We have at least 2 months to look at this, and you guys working with our county staff to make sure everything's, coordinated. Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Thank you. Just, I'm a little shocked to see the I-4, I-75 objection or concern. I guess concern is what it said. And the rarity, I mean, I can't recall a year and a half I've been here, I think one small objection once to a entryway access. And so it's extraordinarily rare. Yeah. Would I be correct in saying that, to ever have FDOT ever express any concerns about any?
Can I answer that, please?
Yes,
Relative to our plan amendment process, it's not unusual for FDOT to express some concerns about any of their state roads in the area, because they all have, to some degree, some problems. So I think they're just covering their bases, if I may. I think your comments and your concerns are extremely important, but I just want to let you know that this is not uncommon in our plan amendment process for FDOT to express, to let us know that they have some concerns with nearby state roads.
Okay, thank you, because I've never.
To your question, I would disagree on one point. Is the request for a operational analysis as part of a rezoning request is a stronger comment than we typically get. I think we've typically seen. So that's something that is a little different about the comment that we've gotten.
I would concur with Mr. Gormley's
I mean,
statement.
obviously, they don't want to be saddled with any kind of a mandate from a project where they have to make like a ramp improvement, something that would have major financial concerns. And I think that's what we have to flush out and vet out. But I'm like everybody else. I want to hear what those exact concerns are and see how they're addressed.
Yeah, historically, we've always had a very good working relationship with the local FDOT office, and any concerns they have to meet with their local staff, especially if there's a particular concern on a particular, network, part of the network. So, yeah, we of course will be working shoulder to shoulder with DSD on this as far as any comments that we receive. If this is transmitted, as Mr. Gormley stated, we will get comments back from FDOT, hopefully more definitive comments.
And our transportation people.
Of course.
I mean, that's important. I mean, whatever happens in this development's got to connect to something so they can get in and out. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. So, okay, thank you very much. Commissioner White?
Yes, I'll be very brief, Madam Chair. First, I just want to say that I don't want my comments to signal that I'm not supportive of the proposed comp plan amendment. I just, want to be sure that we are looking at the issue with traffic on the interstates. And in my humble opinion, I think by and large, the issue that we see on our interstate system, I-4 and I-75, is a result of residential suburban sprawl. But to the extent that FDOT does have concerns with this proposed industrial, to this being converted to an industrial site, I'd want to address that.
Yeah, and Commissioner, I think
to the extent possible.
To the comments made, I think looking at that potentially in hand with the zoning would get us out of the chicken and egg sort of situation that sometimes comp plan amendments
we don't need to go there again. Commissioner Kemp?
I'd just like to express the same that you did. It wasn't necessarily a negative, but a surprise. And I wanted to quite understand because I don't remember such a thing.
Okay, let's move on to the next
All right,
item.
then the next and last amendment is 1803, also in pretty much the same area up in Thonotosassa along Joe Ebert Road. Here you can see the site. It's in the rural area. Again, in the Thonotosassa Community Planning Area. There you see the site outlined in red. It is part of a larger tract that you see outlined in blue to the north. The adopted future land use is agricultural estate. Again, here is the site. They are requesting residential 1, which is adjacent and certainly in the area. There you see the proposed would be residential 1. It would, bottom line impact would be an increase of 17 dwelling units to 44 dwelling units. Again, some policies in the plan relative to compatibility. This would still recognize the rural community of Thonotosassa, where they specifically call for 1 acre and larger future land use classifications. And on this one, we've had no objections, and the review agencies noted sufficient road and school capacity.
Okay. Commissioner Wright, you're recognized.
Thank you. Can you go back 3 slides inclusive of this one? Right there. What does the does not meet locational criteria note mean?
Yes. The comprehensive plan, the future land use element has a policy objective and subsequent policies in it requiring commercial to locate at primarily major intersections in the county, collector roads and above.
So you're I don't mean to interrupt because I'm familiar with locational criteria as it relates to commercial development. So you're saying that the Planning Commission will be supportive of changing it to a Res 1 land use designation, but that it just would not likely ever be a candidate for commercial development.
That's exactly right.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Good. Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Thank you. Where does this stand with regard to the urban service area?
Okay, this is not in the urban service area. Right here is the edge of the urban service area.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. And again, I want to see ULI. I want to make sure our county staff, you guys are all working together, make sure this conforms to what ULI has been recommending to us. So go forward. Thank you very much for your presentation today. 2 important projects, that's for sure.
Thank you.
Is that it? We are officially adjourned. Thank you all. Be safe.